Okay, so a very important part of this story is that our three younger boys were with us. So they was with us when we got to the hospital. They were, at the time, they were 6, 5, and 2. We didn't have anyone to watch them, and we weren't sure when my mother-in-law would be coming into town and if she would even be there. And I was in labor and all of that. So they were with us. Get checked in. We go to the room I'll be in. It was a very spacious room. So I didn't have to worry about that since our boys were with us. They had like this big pull-out couch, and it was really spacious. So the next morning, Friday morning, my OB came. It was around 9 a.m. He came and took the Foley bulb out, and at that time I was about almost 5 centimeters dilated. This is when he wanted to start me on the Pitocin, but very slow doses. Like, we started very slow, and it stayed slow. Put me on Pitocin, and I had the contraction. Everything was going well. Again, this was Friday. Mind you, I went in Thursday night. And another reason why he put me on a slow dose of Pitocin is because, after multiple C-sections, you have to be careful with Pitocin. He was very, very aware. Like, he knew what he was doing. This was not his first rodeo. He was at the hospital. He was attending other patients, and he just wanted to make sure that everything went well. I didn't want to get an epidural. The only reason why I got one was because the cervix checks, I think that's what they're called, they were so painful. And I know some women don't like to have them, but I wanted to get them done just to see where I was. And I knew if I was going to keep getting checked, I was going to have an epidural because it just hurted so bad. So the day went on, labor was progressing, but then towards the evening, he got pretty backed up. He had some emergencies he had to handle, and so they stopped the Pitocin because, again, he's such an amazing doctor. He didn't want anything to go wrong and he not be available, or any other nurses not be available, because they had quite a few emergencies. So he was just like, we're going to stop the Pitocin right now so I can, tend to the other patients, and we'll just go from there. And then when we need to pick it back up, that's what we do. So when they did stop the Pitocin, he was like, you can do, nipple stimulation to try to keep the contractions going. He told me that probably like an hour, maybe 2 hours after we stopped the Pitocin, because I was still actually having contractions on my own. I will say I was around 6 to 7 centimeters dilated right before I had the epidural put in. So around 9:30 p.m. Friday night, I was checked and I was 9 centimeters dilated. He was still attending the emergencies he had, and this is at the point when he recommended the NIPU stimulation to keep the contractions going, since I was not on the Pitocin at this point. So around 2 a.m. Saturday morning, I was checked. I was 9.5 centimeters dilated. I was 100% effaced. So he then decided to go ahead and start the Pitocin back up. And at 3 a.m. now, I was 10 centimeters dilated with a bulging bag. And at this point, my OB goes ahead and gets ready to break my water. But I will say, because you're probably wondering, like, what are your boys doing? My 3 boys, they were asleep. They had already went to sleep, and I can't remember what time. So it was dim in the room. Like, it wasn't bright lights. It was really dim because they had went to bed. During all of this, they were asleep, didn't wake up, nothing bothered them. So they were still asleep when my OB broke my water. So it's around 3:15 a.m. now. My OB's like, okay, I've gotten you to this point. Now it's time for you to do the work. We waited for like another contraction to come, and it was at 3:37 a.m. I did my first push. At this point, my mother-in-law, she did come. So she was there. So she was on one side of me. My husband was on the other side of me, helping me. I will say, at this point, I can tell you I was not prepared for the pushing part. Like, I wish I had been more prepared for that part to know exactly how to do it, but I wasn't. It felt like I had been pushing for 30 minutes, but it actually was a total of an hour. And so right before my last 6 pushes, I just prayed, like, please, God, give me the strength to push my baby out. Around this time is when my 2.5-year, he was 2.5, he woke up, and my husband, hurried up and went to him and got him and picked him up to where he couldn't see. So he was laying down. My husband was standing up holding him, and he was laying down facing, the opposite way. He couldn't see what was going on. And between my last 6 pushes, around there sometime, my OB did use a vacuum to assist with my baby's head coming out. My last 2 pushes, I could feel everything. Like, it wasn't pain, but I could feel everything, and he came right out. So it was at 4:48 a.m. Saturday morning. I pushed my baby out, had my first VBAC after having 4 C-sections. It was amazing. Like, I couldn't believe I had actually done that. The feeling of having him placed on me right after labor, something I had never experienced before, was just amazing. It was a high I was on for like so long. Just being able to avoid having that fifth C-section and having an OB who believed in my body, believed I could do it, that, I wasn't broken. Because, he saw my medical records. Like, there was nothing. I had no health issues, nothing that would not make me a good candidate for having this VBAC. I was the hospital's first VBAC after 4 C-sections. Like, I was there first, like, ever. This hospital is in Pasadena. And the director of labor and delivery came to me the next day, and she thanked me. She was like, well, thank you for putting us on the map. She was like, I was skeptical at first, but your doctor, I trust him. She said the nurses, they gave her articles and letting her know that this was possible and that it could happen. And that made me feel so good. It was just quite an amazing experience. The nurses were amazing. They immediately after I gave birth, they were telling me how they knew I could do it. And my OB was telling some of the nurses, like, now you've seen a VBAC after 4 C-sections. And they were like, what? And so if you've gotten to this point, thank you for listening. I hope this encourages you to know that your body isn't broken. Again, I had no health issues. I had no concerns, but your body is not broken. You can do it. I felt comfortable doing it with a supportive OB. I know everyone doesn't have that opportunity, but this was just my journey, and I'm glad that I could take you along. One last thing I'll add is that around about 10 minutes after my baby was born, all my other boys woke up. So it just felt so nice. It was kind of like a home birth feel, but like in the hospital, because it was just so dim, and they got to see their baby brother right after him being born. It was just really nice.